Today's guest is Alan Katz, an accomplished television and film writer, producer, and podcaster whose career spans some of the entertainment industry's most memorable projects, including HBO's iconic Tales from the Crypt. He's also the creator and host of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, which Entertainment Weekly named the best film podcast of 2022. Alan, welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. So, you have spent years writing for film and television. What first drew you into storytelling?
Well, I would argue that when I was doing film and TV, I was a writer and not so much a storyteller. Now, I was telling stories, but it turned out I was keeping a secret from myself for 45 years. And after all my success doing Tales from the Crypt and the other film and TV projects I did, I went into a 2-decade-long dive into a deepening depression and a writer's block I didn't even know I was in. Absolutely lost my way in every way, shape, and form. And hell, 3 days before Christmas 2016, I came within literal inches of killing myself because of this secret that I was keeping from myself that completely undermined my connection to myself. When I finally started taking a medication that put the darkness in a cage where it couldn't get at me so I could confront this secret that had been, standing between me and me. It is so true what they say about the truth setting you free. And when I could finally tell my whole story to myself, I went from being a really good writer to being a storyteller. If you can't tell your own story to you, can you really tell anyone else's story? No, of course you can't. But once I could tell my story to me with absolute honesty, well, then I could tell anybody's story. And in that transition from writer to storyteller, I found a purpose in my work and in my life that I never had when I was a writer. I wrote really, where's the money? When I became a storyteller, my motivation changed. And I tell stories because that is my purpose. So podcasting came along for me at exactly the right time. I was just beginning to climb back into a creative life. And wow, during the pandemic, a couple of Tales from the Crypt fans of the TV show that I did, 3 guys from around the country, they were Tales from the Crypt fans and they were fathers, and they created a podcast that they did during the pandemic called Dads from the Crypt. They rated all the episodes of Tales from the Crypt, which at that point you could watch on YouTube. It's now streaming on Shudder, but you could watch them on YouTube. They rated all the episodes and they gave parenting advice. And one of the dads found me. He reached out to me. He asked if I'd like to sit in. They were going to be reviewing one of the episodes that I wrote. And I said, great, that sounds like fun. And it was fun. A couple weeks later, he reached out again. He said, we're going to be reviewing. We did 2 feature films, Tales from the Crypt. One was a really good one called Demon Night. And the other, it's a mediocre little horror movie called Bordello of Blood. But the making of Bordello of Blood was completely destroyed me. It was the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of what sent me into that 2-decade-long spiral downward. Well, when the dads from the Crypt reached out and said, hey, you want to sit in and tell the story about the making of Bordello of Blood? I said, Jason, the story of the making of that movie is not a half-hour conversation with you. It's a podcast unto itself. And that was why I started the very first season of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, which the first season was subtitled The Making of Bordello of Blood, in which I told, well, in order for the audience to understand how devastating making a stupid movie was, I had to tell my whole story up to that point, just so that it made sense, and why making Tales from the Crypt was such an amazing creative experience, and how making this movie, Bordello of Blood, was the exact antithesis in every way, shape, and form. And it was telling that story with absolute honesty. That's why Entertainment Weekly called that first season of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast the best film podcast of 2022. It was such it's an insane story, the making of a movie, but how people can compromise not just a creative vision, but a creative business. Turn the whole thing cynical, and how we made a movie that literally nobody making it wanted to make. It's quite a remarkable story about Hollywood and what can go wrong when everybody takes their eye off the ball. But in doing that podcast, I discovered that I love this medium, podcasting. As a storytelling medium, I think more than I enjoy working in any other medium I've ever worked in my life creatively. And I've worked in pretty much most of them, one way or another. Yeah. Podcasting, well, ultimately, I had a friend. After I did a couple seasons of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, which is back after a hiatus, is the How Not to Make a Movie podcast is back in production, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. I've lost my train of thought there for a second. A friend from school reached out to me as I was making subsequent seasons of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, and he had a story, an absolutely true story, something that had happened to him, and he wanted to turn it into a TV series. And I explained to him that really to take an idea, true or something that you created entirely, and turn it into a TV series is literally, this is not, it literally can take you 10 years is the minimum. It's about it's the average, but it's pretty close to what it will take you to get it into production. And there are all kinds of work that has to get done. That's still a decade of hard work. And the moment that you put it into the development process, and really when they say yes, after that 10 years of work, that's not a finished product. That's to get it into production, or into the pipeline. And that's a whole other can of worms, whatever hell comes out the other end of the sausage factory. The problem is that once you go to engage at that point where they give you money and they pay you, you have to sign a thing called a certificate of authorship, a C of A. And that has to do with the nature of film and TV distribution. You can't have some writer saying, I don't like the politics in that country over there. I won't let you distribute there. You can't. You have to have everything. So the writer, the person who just spent a decade working on this thing, basically whatever money they're going to get, they give up all the rights to it throughout the known universe in perpetuity. And they stop owning or controlling it in any way, shape, or form. And there might be monies that come in, but the lion's share of that money is not going to go to the person who just spent a decade or so working on this thing. It's going to go to everybody else. To take the same idea and turn it into a podcast, well, gosh, I can write, produce, distribute. That's the key. I can't distribute a TV show, a series, or a feature film. I can kind of do it via YouTube, but it's not the same. But a podcast, I can distribute the same way and to the same people as everybody else. So I can write, produce, distribute, monetize, and I can collect on that monetization without anybody in an executive suite anywhere having anything to do with it. I don't need their opinion. I don't need their yes or no. And when the money starts coming in from whether it's ad dollars or subscribers, the only person I'm going to share anything with is the credit card company. They'll take their cut, and the rest will go to me and whoever I'm working with. But the best part of it is, at the end of all of that, I still own it 100%. It would still make a great TV series, movie, and I can still sell it that way, except now I don't have to sell it in order to tell the story. I've already done that. And if I've told the story, hopefully the best way I can, I've made money. I might not have gotten rich, but I made money telling my story. So any other monies I get, it's icing. I've enjoyed the cake. Well, that kind of flips the whole power dynamic away from the money and back to the creatives, because all the power in any negotiation is no. In the old days, I would have had to go cap in hand to all those executives, would you please buy my TV series, movie? And really what I'm trying to convey to them in all the work that I've done, the writing, is to convey to these people in the executive suites, what's the IP? What's the intellectual property? What's the franchise? And so instead of going cap in hand, oh, please understand my IP, buy my IP, I'm not going as a seller. I'm going to sit here and they're going to come to me to buy it because they can see how valuable it is. And whereas in the old days, I would have had to go and try to, hey, please understand what the IP is. They know what the IP is. They've come to buy it, and they're going to hand me a check, and I'm going to look at it and say, that's really pretty, but you're going to have to add some zeros and move the decimal point over because I don't need you. Your money is icing. It's the sprinkles that top the icing. Unless the number is what I want it to be, go away. And that's the power in the negotiation, is to be able to tell the other person, you don't need them. Do better. Podcasting it's the best thing that's ever happened to creative people, possibly ever. Was that an answer to your question?
Yes, sir. That answers your question. So, my next question for you is this. So talk about your time in television.
What do you want to know about my time in TV? There's so much to tell.
Yeah, just go on.
Well, I will say this. Now, I speak as a writer, because I'm a writer first and foremost. In the feature film world, it's director-driven, and the writer is really the person who creates a floor plan. Not even the architectural drawings, the floor plan. Everyone else really, it's not until really a director and then the art department and production design and casting, and then of course feature films and TV series, any filmed entertainment really doesn't come together until it gets into the editing room, wherever it's going to be cut. And it's however these bits and pieces of film or video or digital images, whatever order you put them in and clip them nice and tight or allow for breath, that changes the whole nature of the storytelling. The writer really, I would argue that film and TV really don't get fully written until they get to the editing. And that's when most of the writing, as it were, gets done. Everything up to that point was set up to this. TV is quite different, though. TV is writer-producer driven, and the director, rather than being the organizing principle around which how we're going to tell the story rotates, the director in TV is just a gun for hire, a traffic cop, because the TV series. And that really comes down to the showrunners, the creators, and the people who have started with a vision for this story and how we're going to tell it across however many episodes and seasons we're going to tell it. Because these are the holders of the IP, of the vision, of the franchise. Directors are there to service that vision and not the other way around, as it is in feature films. So as a writer-producer, because TV relies on a number of writer-producers being attached to any project because there's so much work to go around, especially in the old days when you were doing network shows, or even in the early days of some of the cables when I was doing the Outer Limits on Showtime, those seasons were all firm 22s. So I did 2 seasons. That's 44 episodes. Just even doing 22 episodes, you need a couple of writers, one to have enough ideas just to get the series rolling, and then as outside writers do work and contribute their scripts, you need to have a core of writers who bring all that stuff. Again, it's a show like The Outer Limits all shows have a certain house style, house feel, and outside writers will try to mimic it, but it really needs to come inside, and that's one of the reasons that you have a writer's room. to create stories, but also to shepherd other writers and finish, to bring their work and make it align with everything else that you're doing. It's rather normal for, in feature films, writers, maybe they visit the set occasionally. And they might be given a seat near the monitor, might be. Writers are not terribly welcome on film sets, but not that welcome. On TV sets, of course, because they're also the producer, it's a much kinder, gentler, more inviting place for a writer to be. Because there you can, if you're the writer-producer, you can talk to the actors. And no one's going to lose their head because you're the producer. And again, the director, he's working with, if it's an ongoing series, the director is working with those characters this week. You, as the writer-producer, work with them all the time. You know those characters better than the director. It's a very, very different creative environment for a writer. Any questions beyond that?
All right, Alan. So let me know, what is one thing you wish listeners to take away from all this?
Good storytelling comes down to one essential: honesty. It really is the root of great storytelling. Yeah, it's easy to tell a story, but the more honestly you tell a story, that's what people react to. The honesty of the story they're hearing, seeing, experiencing. It's the honesty, because that's the thing we all want to connect with. That we can relate to someone else's experience, either because something like that has happened to us, or we're grateful that nothing like that has, or hopefully ever could, happen to us. Yeah, honesty. And being honest in your storytelling. Yeah, that's everything.
Thank you so much, Alan. So, Alan, I see a lot of books in your background.
Indeed. And
You're an avid reader. You read a lot.
I've read a couple of those books.
So what book would you recommend for me and my listeners to check out? One of your favorite books? Well,
fiction. I don't read much fiction anymore. I can't, because I've got so many different fictions running that I just. But when I was reading fiction, I read every book that John le Carré ever wrote, and Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy is, I think, one of my favorite books. Another book that changed my life, changed the way that I thought to some degree, was *Sapiens* by I'm going up on the author's name. The book *Sapiens*. It's a deep look into the history of our species, Homo sapiens. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that we've made almost everything up.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for making this episode a very, very wonderful episode.
Well, thank you so much. Very kind of you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, positively. Can I leave one for 6 stars?
Yeah, I'm sure if you do that now, so you don't forget that. Thank you.
Absolutely, positively.
Okay, so how can listeners connect with you and learn more about what you do?
They can go to costardandtouchstone.com. That's my company's website. That's COSTARD, the word and, Touchstone, TOUCHSTONE.com. And it's named, during my very brief acting career, I appeared in 2 Shakespearean productions, Love's Labour's Lost and As You Like It. I played the part of Costard in Love's Labour's Lost, and Touchstone in As You Like It. Both characters are wise fools who speak truth to power. And that's what my company and my podcast do. We are a wise fool speaking truth to power. So you can find us at costardandtouchstone.com, where right now we have, shortly we'll have a dozen podcasts, all out into the world, including John Kiriaku's Dead Drop, which has gotten as high as number 4 on Apple's history charts. So Check us out at costardandtouchstone.com. Your next podcast obsession is just a click away.
Once again, thank you so much for coming, Alan. You have a wonderful day.
The pleasure was absolutely mine. Talk to you later.